They don't want you to be smart. They want you predictable. Right now, someone is winning a game you didn't even know you were playing. They're getting promoted over you, getting chosen over you, succeeding while you're stuck wondering what you're doing wrong. And here's what nobody tells you. They're not smarter than you. They're not more talented. They just understand something you were never taught. I'm about to show you what they've been hiding. But first, I need you to do something. Drop one word in the comments right now. Just type aware if you're ready to see what most people will never understand. Because what I'm about to share will change how you see every conversation, every relationship, every opportunity for the rest of your life. Let me tell you about Marcus. Brilliant guy, top of his class, master's degree, worked harder than everyone in his office. And he watched, year after year, as people with half his qualifications climbed past him. He couldn't figure it out. He was doing everything right, following all the rules, being honest, working hard, staying humble. Then one day, his new boss pulled him aside, and what she said destroyed everything he thought he knew about success. She said, "Marcus, you're the most competent person here. That's exactly why you'll never lead this company." That moment broke him, but it also woke him up. See, Marcus had been sold a lie. The same lie they sold you in school. The same lie your parents probably believed. That if you're smart enough, work hard enough, and play by the rules, you'll win. But that's not how the real world works. That's not how it's ever worked. The real world runs on a different operating system. And the people who win, they cracked the code a long time ago. I spent 3 years studying the patterns, reading banned books, interviewing people who built empires from nothing, analyzing leaders, negotiators, the ones who seemed to bend reality to their will. And I found something that made my blood run cold. Everything you were taught about intelligence was designed to keep you in your place. Think about it. School taught you to raise your hand, wait your turn, memorize what they told you, and never question authority. They rewarded obedience and called it excellence. They punished creativity and called it disruption. They trained you to be a perfect employee, a perfect follower, someone who colors inside the lines and never asks why the lines are there in the first place. But the people who actually run things, they never followed those rules. They understood something else entirely. Machiavelli wrote about it 500 years ago, and they buried his works so deep that even today his name is used as an insult. Why? Because he told the truth that power doesn't want you to know. He said, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." Let that sink in for a second. Your reality is controlled by people who understand that perception is more powerful than truth, that influence is more valuable than skill, that positioning beats performance every single time. And they've been using this against you your entire life. Right now, I can already feel some of you resisting this. Good. That resistance is your programming. They taught you to feel uncomfortable with this information because comfortable people are controllable people. But I'm not here to make you comfortable. I'm here to make you free. So let me ask you a question, and I want you to be honest with yourself. How many times have you been in a room where the dumbest person was the most confident? Where the least qualified person got the opportunity? Where someone with half your ability somehow convinced everyone they were the obvious choice? It happens every single day. And it's not an accident. It's a skill. One you were never taught because they need you to keep believing that hard work and talent are enough. They're not. Before we go deeper, I need you to understand something crucial. This isn't about becoming manipulative. This isn't about hurting people. This is about protection. This is about making sure you never get played again. Because right now, whether you realize it or not, you're being played. Every time you share too much in a conversation, you're being played. Every time you show all your cards in a negotiation, you're being played. Every time you react emotionally instead of strategically, you're being played. And the people who are playing you, they learned these rules before they could walk. Watch a 5-year-old child who wants something. They don't demand it. They don't throw a tantrum. The smart ones? They wait. They study which parent is more tired, which moment has the least resistance. They ask indirectly. They create situations where giving them what they want feels like the path of least resistance. That child understands strategy better than most adults. Somewhere along the way, you unlearn this. They taught you to be direct, to be honest, to lay all your cards on the table. They called it integrity. But really, they just made you easy to beat. Here's what changed everything for me. I was in a meeting with someone I thought was just average. Nothing special. But I watched him navigate a room of people who were objectively smarter, more experienced, more qualified. And by the end of that meeting, every single person in that room was nodding along with his ideas. Ideas that weren't even that good. I stayed after and asked him how he did it. And he looked at me like I'd asked him how he breathes. He said, "I didn't convince them of anything. I just listened until I understood what they needed to hear." That sentence rewired my brain. He wasn't smarter. He was strategic. He understood that people don't make decisions based on logic. They make decisions based on emotion, then justify them with logic later. So while everyone else was presenting facts and data, he was speaking directly to their fears, their desires, their unspoken needs. He was playing chess while they were playing checkers. And he wasn't even trying that hard. This is what I call strategic intelligence, and it operates on 8 core principles that I'm about to break down for you. But here's the thing. You can't just know these. You have to feel them. You have to see them working in your own life before you'll truly believe they're real. So as we go through each one, I want you to think about someone in your life who's winning, someone who seems to effortlessly get what they want. I guarantee you, they're using these principles. Maybe consciously, maybe not, but they're using them. The first principle is what I call strategic opacity, and it's the opposite of everything they taught you about communication. You were taught to be clear, to explain yourself, to make sure everyone understands your intentions. That's great advice if you want to be easy to predict. Terrible advice if you want to maintain power. Here's what most people do. Someone asks them a question, and they feel this weird obligation to provide a complete answer, to explain their thinking, to justify their choices. And with every word, they're giving away leverage. Smart people understand that mystery is magnetic. When you don't reveal everything, people's brains automatically try to fill in the blanks. And whatever they imagine is almost always more interesting than reality. This isn't about lying. This is about understanding that your information is currency. And most people are out here acting like it's monopoly money, just throwing it around without thinking about the value. Let me give you a real example. 2 people are up for the same promotion, both equally qualified. Person A, when asked about their career goals in the interview, gives this long, detailed explanation about exactly where they want to be in 5 years, what they want to learn, what they're worried about. Person B says, "I'm focused on creating value wherever I can have the biggest impact." The specific role matters less than the opportunity to solve meaningful problems. Same intention, completely different impact. Person A just told them exactly how to box them in. Person B created space for the interviewer's imagination. They can project whatever they want onto that answer. Guess who got the promotion? But here's where it gets really interesting. Strategic opacity isn't just about what you say, it's about your entire presence. The most powerful people I've studied have this quality where you can spend hours with them and somehow leave feeling like you know them. But when you actually think about it, they revealed almost nothing concrete. They're masters of the meaningful non-answer. They redirect. They ask questions instead of making statements. They share stories that feel personal, but actually contain no real vulnerability. And people are drawn to them like magnets because humans are wired to solve puzzles. We can't help ourselves. When someone is a mystery, we become obsessed with figuring them out. This leads directly into the second principle, adaptive presence. You are not the same person with everyone. And that's not being fake, that's being intelligent. I'm going to say something that might upset you. Authenticity is overrated. No, hear me out. The modern obsession with just being yourself is perhaps the most damaging advice ever given to an entire generation. You know who's authentic all the time? Children, and people with no social awareness. They say exactly what they think, do exactly what they feel, react exactly how their emotions dictate, and we don't let them drive cars or sign contracts for a reason. Maturity is learning that different situations require different versions of you. Your grandmother doesn't need to meet the version of you that your college friends know. Your boss doesn't need to see the version of you that exists on Saturday nights, and your competitors definitely don't need to see the version of you that doubts itself. But here's what they don't tell you. The most successful people aren't just passively different in different contexts. They actively study the person they're talking to and adjust their communication in real time. Watch a skilled negotiator. They mirror body language. They match speaking pace. If the other person is analytical, they lead with data. If they're emotional, they lead with vision. If they're skeptical, they acknowledge objections before they're even raised. This isn't manipulation. This is meeting people where they are instead of forcing them to come to where you are. Most people communicate the way they prefer to receive communication, and then they wonder why half the people they talk to don't seem to get it. It's because you're speaking a language they don't naturally understand. Someone who values security doesn't care about your vision of possibility. Someone who values freedom doesn't care about your promise of stability. Someone who values recognition doesn't care about your logical arguments. The smartest people I know are like water. They take the shape of whatever container they're in, but they never lose their essential nature. They adapt the presentation without compromising their core values. And this is where most people get it wrong. They think being adaptive means being fake. It doesn't. It means being sophisticated enough to understand that the same message needs to be delivered differently to different people. You don't change what you believe. You change how you express it, based on who's listening. This brings us to the third principle, and this one is going to be uncomfortable. Emotional detachment. What you're not willing to lose controls you. What doesn't bind you can't break you. I watched a friend negotiate a job offer last year. The company lowballed her. And I mean seriously lowballed her. She was insulted. She was angry. She wanted to tell them exactly what she thought of their offer. But she didn't. You know why? Because she'd already applied this principle. She'd interviewed at 3 other companies. She had options. She wasn't desperate. So instead of reacting emotionally, she calmly said, "I appreciate the offer, but that doesn't align with my expectations. I'm going to explore other opportunities. If your situation changes, feel free to reach out." They called back 3 days later with an offer 40% higher. That's the power of detachment. When you're not desperate for the outcome, you negotiate from a position of strength. When you're not afraid of walking away, suddenly people are afraid of you walking away. But detachment goes so much deeper than negotiations. It's about understanding that most of your power is being drained by invisible attachments you don't even realize you have. You're attached to being right, so you waste energy on arguments that don't matter. You're attached to being liked, so you say yes when you should say no. You're attached to looking smart, so you talk when you should listen. You're attached to being understood, so you over-explain when mystery would serve you better. Every single one of these attachments is a leash, and someone else is holding the other end. The people who seem unshakable, they practiced letting go, not of everything. They still care. They still have goals and relationships and desires, but they're not enslaved by them. There's a concept in ancient philosophy called preferred indifference. It means you prefer certain outcomes, but you're not destroyed if you don't get them. You'd like to win, but you're not afraid to lose. You'd like people to agree with you, but you're not dependent on their approval. This state of mind is terrifying to people who are used to controlling others through fear of loss. Because what can you threaten someone with when they're not afraid of losing anything? Here's the practical application. Next time you want something from someone, anything, ask yourself, am I negotiating from need or from preference? If it's need, you've already lost. You need to create options until it becomes preference. This is why people who seem to have everything often get more. It's not just about resources. It's about the energy of detachment. When you don't need it, people want to give it to you. When you're desperate for it, People sense it and pull away. The fourth principle: silent influence. Real power whispers. Only insecurity screams. There's a man I studied who runs a company with 300 employees. I watched him walk into a meeting where executives were screaming at each other about some decision. He didn't say a word for 15 minutes. He just sat there, listening, taking it all in. And I watched what happened in that room. Slowly, one by one, people started glancing at him, waiting for his reaction. The energy shifted. The loudest voices got quieter, and when he finally spoke, it was almost a whisper. He said 4 sentences, and everyone in that room completely changed their position. That's silent influence. It's not about dominating the conversation. It's about dominating the space. Most people think power is about having the loudest voice or the strongest opinion, but that's amateur hour. Real power is about creating situations where people naturally defer to you without you having to demand it. How do you build this? By consistently being the person who adds value without asking for recognition. By solving problems before they become crises. By having information that others need. By being so reliable that people feel safer when you're in the room. Silent influence is built on patterns, not moments. It's what you do consistently over time, not what you say dramatically in one meeting. Here's what most people miss. Every time you force your opinion, you lose a little bit of influence. Every time you demand credit, you lose a little bit of respect. Every time you need to be the center of attention, you reveal that you're not actually the center of power. The most influential person in any room is usually not the one talking the most. They're the one everyone looks at when a decision needs to be made. And here's the secret. They built that position by being quiet when others were loud, by being certain when others were anxious, by being calm when others were chaotic. You want to know who really has power in your workplace? Don't look at the org chart. Look at who people go to when they have a problem. Look at whose opinion actually changes decisions. Look at who can kill a project with silence or greenlight it with a nod. That's where real power lives. In the unspoken understanding that some people's presence carries weight that has nothing to do with their title. The fifth principle is something I call psychological mirroring. And this is where things get really interesting. People don't want what you're selling. They want what they're already looking for. Your job is to become what they're looking for. Every person you meet is walking around with an invisible checklist. They're asking questions they'll never say out loud. Do you see me? Do you understand me? Am I safe with you? Can you give me what I need? Most people are so focused on what they want to say that they completely miss these silent questions. And then they wonder why their perfectly logical argument didn't land, why their great idea got rejected, why that person didn't connect with them. Here's what changed everything for me. I stopped trying to be impressive and started trying to be receptive. I stopped thinking about what I wanted to communicate and started listening for what they needed to hear. Not manipulating them, not telling them lies, just understanding their frequency and tuning into it. Let me show you how this works. Someone comes to you complaining about their job. Most people immediately jump to solutions. You should look for a new job. You should talk to your boss. You should set boundaries. But that person isn't looking for solutions. Not yet. They're looking for validation. They need someone to say, "That sounds incredibly frustrating. You're dealing with a lot." That's psychological mirroring. You're reflecting back their emotional experience before you try to solve their problem. And something almost magical happens. Once people feel truly heard, they become incredibly open to whatever you say next. This principle works in every context. In sales, you're not selling a product. You're reflecting back their desire for a solution. In leadership, you're not giving orders. You're reflecting back their desire for direction. In relationships, you're not just loving someone. You're reflecting back their desire to be seen and valued. The people who master this become almost hypnotic to be around, because everyone else is broadcasting, but they're receiving. Everyone else is transmitting, but they're tuning in. And here's the deepest layer. When you truly understand someone's core needs and fears, you can position anything you want in terms that naturally appeal to them. Someone who values security? You present your idea in terms of stability and protection. Someone who values achievement. You present the same idea in terms of success and recognition. Someone who values freedom. You present it in terms of autonomy and possibility. Same idea, same message, different language. And suddenly, people who would have rejected your idea are embracing it because you spoke their dialect. This isn't deception. This is communication mastery. The sixth principle is the most controversial one, and I need you to really hear me on this. Practical pragmatism. The real world is not black and white, and the people who insist on moral purity are usually the ones with the least responsibility for actual outcomes. Here's what they don't tell you in school. Sometimes the kind thing leads to cruel outcomes. Sometimes the harsh decision is the most compassionate one. Sometimes protecting people means making choices that don't look pretty on paper. I'm not talking about being evil. I'm talking about being effective in a complex world where simple answers rarely work. Let me give you an example. You're managing a team, and one person is consistently underperforming and bringing down everyone else's morale. The nice thing to do is give them more chances, more support, more training, more. But what about the 7 other people on the team who are working hard and getting demoralized? What about the mission that's suffering because of one person's inability? What about the long-term health of the organization? Someone with practical pragmatism might decide that the compassionate choice is to let that person go, even though it feels harsh, because protecting the many matters more than protecting the one. This is adult thinking. This is leadership thinking. This is the kind of decision-making that people with real responsibility have to do every single day. The world is full of people who have strong opinions about what others should do, but no accountability for the outcomes. They can afford to be idealistic because they're not the ones dealing with the consequences. But if you want to actually win, if you want to actually create change, if you want to actually lead, you have to be willing to make decisions that aren't clean. That don't make you look good. That might be misunderstood by people who don't have the full context. This doesn't mean compromising your core values. It means understanding that applying those values in the real world sometimes requires nuance, timing, and strategic thinking. The 7th principle, controlled revelation. In a world where everyone is oversharing, strategic silence is a superpower. You've been taught that transparency is always good, that openness is always better, that sharing is always caring. But that's not true. That's just what people who want access to you convinced you to believe. Every piece of information you reveal can be used. Every vulnerability you expose can be exploited. Every detail you share becomes part of how people categorize and limit you. I'm not saying be secretive about everything. I'm saying be intentional about what you share and when you share it. Most people dump their entire biography on anyone who asks. They explain their motivations, their fears, their plans, their history. They think they're building trust. But really, they're just giving away leverage. Smart people reveal information strategically. They share enough to build connection, but not enough to lose mystique. They're open about some things and completely opaque about others. And here's what's fascinating. The less you share, the more people assume you have to share. The more selective you are with your words, the more weight those words carry. This applies to your digital life too. Every post, every comment, every photo becomes part of your permanent record. People are forming opinions about you based on your digital footprint before they ever meet you. The most sophisticated people I know have a careful digital presence. They're intentional about what they post, when they post, and what image they're cultivating. They understand that their online persona is part of their overall strategy. But controlled revelation goes even deeper. It's about timing. The same information can have completely different impacts depending on when it's shared. Revealing a skill too early might seem like bragging. Revealing it later when it's needed makes you seem humble and helpful. Sharing your opinion too soon might make you seem judgmental. Sharing it after you've listened makes you seem wise. The key is this: information revealed cannot be unrevealed. So err on the side of sharing less. You can always reveal more later, but you can never take back what's already known. The eighth and final principle: ruthless efficiency. You're not here to look busy. You're not here to feel productive. You're not here to win arguments or prove points. You're here to get results. Period. Most people are addicted to activity. They confuse motion with progress. They think working hard automatically means moving forward, but you can work incredibly hard on the wrong things and get absolutely nowhere. The people who win understand something critical. Not all actions are equal. 20% of what you do produces 80% of your results. Your job is to figure out what that 20% is and ruthlessly eliminate everything else. This means saying no to opportunities that don't serve your actual goals. This means abandoning projects that aren't working. This means disappointing people who expect you to do things that don't move you forward. Most people can't do this. They're too attached to being liked, too attached to appearing busy, too attached to their original plan even when it's clearly not working. Outcome-obsessed people are attached to their goals, not their methods. If one approach isn't producing results, they try something different. If one strategy isn't working, they pivot. They're flexible about how they achieve their outcomes. They're only rigid about achieving the outcomes themselves. This is where most people fail. They get emotionally invested in being right about their approach. They'd rather fail with their original plan than succeed with a different one. Smart people don't care about being right. They care about being effective. Here's the brutal truth. The world doesn't reward effort. It rewards results. You can work 90 hours a week and get nowhere. Or you can work 30 hours a week on the right things and build an empire. The question isn't, am I working hard enough? The question is, am I working on the right things? This also means being honest about what's working and what isn't. Most people lie to themselves about their progress because the truth is uncomfortable. They focus on activity metrics instead of outcome metrics. I sent 50 applications sounds impressive until you realize none of them led to interviews. I posted every day for a month sounds dedicated until you realize your audience didn't grow. Ruthless efficiency means measuring what matters and being brutally honest about whether you're moving the needle or just keeping yourself busy. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. This all sounds great, but isn't this just manipulation? Isn't this just teaching people to be fake? No, and I'm going to explain why. Manipulation is using these principles to get what you want at someone else's expense. Strategic intelligence is using these principles to create better outcomes for everyone involved. Manipulation is selfish. Strategy is sustainable. See, the people who use these principles to hurt others always get exposed eventually. Always. Because you can't maintain a manipulative approach long-term without people figuring it out. But when you use strategic intelligence ethically, when you use it to genuinely understand people and create win-win situations, you build something that lasts. You build real influence, real relationships, real power. The goal isn't to become the villain. The goal is to stop being the victim. Because right now, whether you realize it or not, people are using these exact principles on you. Your boss is using them. Your colleagues are using them. Advertisers are using them. Politicians are using them. The only question is, are you going to stay blind to it, or are you going to learn to see the game? I'm not teaching you this so you can manipulate people. I'm teaching you this so you can protect yourself, so you can recognize when someone is using these techniques on you, so you can level the playing field. Because the worst thing you can be in this world is naive. The second worst thing you can be is cynical. The best thing you can be is strategic. Strategic means you understand how the game works, but you choose to play it with integrity. You recognize the patterns, but you use them to create value, not to extract it. Here's what I want you to do right now. Think about your life. Think about the areas where you feel stuck, where you feel like you're doing everything right, but not getting the results you want. I guarantee you, in every single one of those areas, you're violating at least one of these principles. Maybe you're being too transparent when you should be strategically opaque. Maybe you're being too rigid when you should be adaptive. Maybe you're too attached when you should be detached. Maybe you're too loud when you should be cultivating silent influence. Maybe you're trying to convince people instead of mirroring them. Maybe you're being too idealistic when you need to be pragmatic. Maybe you're sharing too much when you should be revealing strategically. Maybe you're focused on activity when you should be obsessed with outcomes. Pick one, just one, and for the next 7 days, practice it deliberately. Notice how people respond to you differently. Notice how you feel different in situations that used to stress you out. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to realize that this isn't theory, this is reality. These principles work because they're based on how humans actually operate, not how we wish they operated. The uncomfortable truth is that the world runs on psychology, not fairness. On perception, not performance. On positioning, not just productivity. You can be angry about that, or you can use it. The people who are winning right now, they chose to use it. They stopped complaining about the game being rigged and learned to play it better than everyone else. And here's the beautiful irony. Once you understand these principles, once you can see the patterns everywhere, you actually become more ethical, not less. Because you understand the responsibility that comes with this knowledge. You understand that real power isn't about dominating others. It's about mastering yourself. The most dangerous person in any room is the one with nothing to lose. But the most valuable person in any room is the one who understands human psychology and uses it to make everyone's life better. That's the choice in front of you right now. You can close this video and go back to pretending that hard work and talent are enough. You can keep following the rules they taught you and wonder why you're not winning. Or you can accept reality for what it is, learn to navigate it skillfully, and finally start getting the results you deserve. The game is already being played. The only question is whether you're going to stay a piece on the board or become a player. I'll tell you what happened to Marcus, the guy I told you about at the beginning. The one who worked harder than everyone, but kept getting passed over. He spent 6 months studying these principles, not just learning them intellectually, but practicing them in real situations. He stopped over-explaining himself and became strategically opaque. He adapted his communication style to different audiences. He detached from outcomes and paradoxically started achieving more of them. He learned to build silent influence instead of demanding recognition. He mirrored people's needs instead of forcing his agenda. He made pragmatic decisions instead of idealistic ones. He controlled his information instead of giving it all away. And he became ruthlessly focused on results instead of activity. Last month, he got promoted. Not because he worked harder, because he worked smarter. Not because he was more talented, because he was more strategic. And here's what he told me. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm actually in control. Not controlling other people, controlling my own narrative, my own trajectory, my own outcomes. That's what this knowledge gives you. Not power over others, power over your own life. But it requires you to let go of some comfortable lies. The lie that the world is fair. The lie that talent always wins. The lie that you can succeed without understanding strategy. Those lies keep you safe, but they also keep you stuck. The truth will make you uncomfortable, but it will also set you free. So here's my final question for you. What are you going to do with this information? Are you going to forget it by tomorrow and go back to your old patterns? Or are you going to take one principle, just one, and start applying it until it becomes second nature? The people who win aren't necessarily smarter than you. They just made a different choice. They chose to see reality clearly instead of through the filter of what they wished was true. You have that same choice right now. Comment below with the one principle you're going to practice first, not just to tell me, to commit publicly so you actually follow through. And if this video changed how you see intelligence and power, hit that like button. Not for me, for the algorithm, so this message reaches people who need to hear it. Subscribe if you want more content that tells you the truth instead of what's comfortable. Because I'm never going to lie to you to make you feel better. Until next time, remember, true intelligence isn't just about being smart. It's about being wise enough to use your intelligence strategically, ethically, and effectively. The game is being played whether you acknowledge it or not. The only question is whether you're going to keep losing it unknowingly or start winning it deliberately. They lied to you about intelligence. Now you know the truth. What you do with it is up to you.